If you've been playing Renegades, you may have heard a voice line from Drifter upon starting an activity on Venus to do with Venus popping back into Sol. I'll play the clip.
Ops ain't been cleared on Venus since it popped back into Sol. Legal ones, anyway. Guess they still aren't.
The Vanguard
What?
may admonish us, but they understand the necessity of our actions. They
What?
won't interfere. Do you trust these pikers?
Hell no.
What?
But if it gets us what we need to move one step ahead of the Imperium, of the Nine, I'll roll those dice.
I wasn't aware that Venus was gone. Whenever I heard this voice line, I got really confused because it sort of conflicts with all the information that we've had previously on the planets that got abducted by the Darkness, or as we now know, the Witness, which were, as a refresher, which doesn't really matter anymore because they've all came back as far as I'm aware, Mercury, Io, Titan and Mars. This is genuinely the first mention in-game of Venus having disappeared or it having reappeared at any point. It's never been inaccessible. I mean, it has been to us playing the game because it's not a destination, but in the actual universe of Destiny, it didn't vanish. So very odd, this voice line. It does conflict with everything that we sort of had in the past. We have had mentions since the planets got abducted of the likes of Crow, I think it was, going to Venus for certain purposes. I think it was for him, it was just exploring the system, I think. But Venus has been mentioned, and it's been around, so this conflicts with all the prior information we've had. Now, there was a post on the DestinyLore subreddit a couple days ago by Chrome13, who basically asked the exact same thing. When was Venus actually abducted? Have I missed something? Here's all the lore from around Season of Arrivals, where these planets got abducted, but Venus wasn't mentioned. What went on? What happened? Did I miss something? And interestingly, the Destiny 2 team account actually responded, saying, "Ah, shit, good catch. Team's aware and already looking to fix this up. Happy launch week. Hope you're enjoying it." So this is actually a mistake. They didn't mean to say that Venus popped back into Sol. And honestly, I find this very interesting because I can't remember a single time before this that a voice line, or really any piece of lore in general, but specifically voice lines because I'm a bit clued into that stuff, has made it into the game and it was incorrect. Like, so much so that they're looking to change it. It's actually kind of bizarre. I don't think you can really fault them for it because they are trying to build up the next saga, and I think there's so much lore now that whilst this seems like a fairly basic thing where there was 4 planets abducted, Venus wasn't one of them, you can easily check that. Maybe they were just focusing on other things and this was part of the previous saga, technically. Maybe that's how it slipped through. I would really love to know how this actually happened, but the most plausible theory I can think of is just they meant to say Mars instead of Venus. The rest of this conversation between Drifter and Eris doesn't mention Venus at all. They just talk about the hikers and stuff. Mars is also featured in this expansion quite heavily. There's activities on Mars. I think it could honestly be as simple as they just meant to have it say Mars instead of Venus. I guess this conversation ended up being used for the Venus activities instead of the Mars activities. I would say that's probably the most plausible answer, to be honest. People also mentioned in the comments of this post about how Scene 14 in the last season sort of talks about the Siva crisis, as though he was there and he's talking from experience. But generally he does sort of say we and not I, or really refer to himself. So I think it's probably more a case of they chose just to have Saint kind of gloss over the fact that he wasn't really there, because he will have known about it from reading up on the history of whatever's happened since he vanished. So I think it makes sense that he said we. I don't really think that's a mistake, as people were sort of saying. I think that's just a creative choice that they decided to go with, whereas mentioning Venus here is quite clearly an actual mistake. I think it'll be really interesting to see how exactly they fix this. I think the most likely option is they just removed from the game and say that's it. I doubt they'll re-record the voice line to say Mars instead, but I guess there's always a chance that they did record a version of this saying Mars instead of Venus and they just accidentally put the Venus one in the game and therefore put it against the Venus activity. In the grand scheme of Renegades, this clearly isn't an actual issue. It's very minor. It references prior lore, but if you're anything like me, you will have heard this and just been completely thrown off. Destiny's overall lore has always been really great, so it's good to see that they acknowledge this so quickly and that they intend to fix it as well. Let me know your thoughts on this in the comments below and whether or not you got really confused like I did whenever I first heard this. Either way, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please consider leaving a like, maybe even subscribing, and I shall see you in the next one. Bye bye.